My name's Jeff Bajorek, and my career in sales has been a hell of a ride. And I want to bring you along with me. If you prefer to sell things at a premium, if you never want to win a deal on price, rethink the way you sell. Welcome back to the show. My name's Jeff Bajorek. I'm your host. I'm here to help you rethink the way you sell, and this is Season 5. Really excited to be with you here for Season 5. I'm going to lay out these 7 steps to selling like you. I touched on this at the end of Season 4, and I want to tell you just for a second, a couple of seconds, probably a couple of minutes actually, about how we got here. And, look, we go back to the very first episode of this show. It was the end of February 2022. I told you about how I missed podcasting. I told you about how I really enjoyed the opportunity to sit down in front of a microphone and think some things out loud. It's how I do a lot of my very best work, and I think some of that, a lot of it really, is worth sharing. And so that's where this podcast kind of comes from. The other thing that I wanted to do was break the content up into seasons. I want it to be in packages that you can go back to. I want this to be kind of an audio blog of sorts to where, look, everything flows from one into the next, and you've got these seasons of subject matter expertise. You've got these seasons of content where you always know where you can go. And the podcast platforms like Apple Podcasts, like YouTube, they allow for the sorting by seasons. I think Spotify will eventually get there, but regardless, you have these places to go back, and it's very neatly categorized. I should also say that if you go to rethinkthewayyouSell.com, join the community for free. The podcast is there in course form as well. And that is a way where you can go in and actually comment on and discuss these episodes as they come out. Which is a really cool feature that not a lot of people are using right now, in fairness, but it's there for you, and you have it all there, really to get after if you want. But what I love about the way this podcast has progressed is that it isn't going the way I had it laid out. Initially when I sat down a year and a half ago now to lay out these seasons, I had about 2 years worth of content, and I've diverted from that original plan. But that's exactly the point. One season led to another, led to another, led to another. And now at the end of Season 4, I realized that it wasn't enough to just tell people what it means to sell like you. I have to give you a roadmap. And so at the very last episode, and in the very last episode of Season 4, I laid out the 7 steps to selling like you. And that's what I'm going to do this season, but with a little more detail. I'm going to peel back the layers of the onion and go a little bit deeper. I'm going to have a couple of interviews here. There are some places where it just makes sense to bring on one of my colleagues, one of my friends, one of my mentors to talk a little bit more about where this concept came from for me. But for the most part, you're going to keep hearing from me in these brief 10-minute-ish episodes because, one, I get a lot of feedback from people that say, we love these short episodes. You give me something to think about, and then you let me go think about it. And also because, look, I like this format. If I can just drip out one concept a week, if I can be provocative with you in 10 minutes and let you have the other 20 minutes, if you figure most podcasts are 30 minutes long, I can give you those 20 minutes back, and I can let you go interpret and dive a little deeper into the concept that I've just provoked you with. It's almost like that 30-minute meeting ending soon, right? That's a gift. So what I'm going to do as I move forward is peel back these concepts, right? I'm going to intentionally be provocative, and I'm going to ask you to think about something very specifically at the end of every episode. And that is going to help you get more out of each of these episodes. Now, the way I developed as a seller was by asking questions like this, by spending a lot of my mental bandwidth thinking about and poring over the answers. I talked about these concepts with my colleagues. I asked questions that got some eyebrow raises from those colleagues. But at the end of the day, if you sit down, if you dig into these concepts, it's going to make you a better seller. Anytime you can be a little bit more cerebral about these concepts than your colleagues, than your competitors, you're going to come away with a better understanding. With a better understanding comes mastery. With mastery comes more success. That's what I'm trying to do with this show, and I appreciate you being here with me. So I want to dig into this. The very first episode today, the first step to selling like you is knowing yourself, right? So you have to know yourself. And part of knowing yourself is the alignment that you have with what you do, who you do it for, how you do it, and why. And that alignment, without that alignment, you can't be in full integrity. Without full integrity, you can't do your very best work. You can do good work, but it's important that if you want to do your best work, you really have to have full alignment between those four concepts. What do you sell? Who do you sell it to, or to whom do you sell it? I don't talk like that, so even though it's proper grammar, that's not how I say it. So I apologize to all of my English teachers that I'm going to continue to say it wrong, but you know what I mean. The third aspect is how you sell it, and then why you sell it. And in the next episode, we're going to talk about why. Okay, I'm going to go back into what is your why, and we will cover that. That's important enough to cover on its own. But today I want to talk a little bit about the first three, and really just the third one, because the first two come along with the position that you chose. Most of you are selling for companies that aren't blue ocean startups, right? Or most of you listening to this are not entrepreneurs who are in the middle of thinking their own ideas up right now and taking them to market. You've probably got some idea of what you sell and who you are selling it to. And so those things were largely chosen for you. But obviously there's alignment between those two things. That's called product market fit. We know that's vital to the success of a business. So once you're on board with a company and you're okay with what you sell, and then you're okay with who you sell it to, most of this really lies, most of your integrity, most of that alignment really aligns with how you sell it. And this is an important concept. Until you recognize that you can define or redefine selling any way you want, and that you might as well define it in a way that serves you best, that is what really opens you up to do your best work. And that is really the definition of sell like you. That's why we're starting here. If you're trying to sell like me, if you're trying to sell like someone else who's selling you a course or a blueprint or, a cookbook or whatever, one of my mentors always used to say, look, Jeff, there's no cookbook for this. And I take that a step further, and I'm going to tell you that there are more ways to do it right than to do it wrong. But what you have to do first is redefine selling in a way that suits you. You have to call it what it is. You have to decide what you want it to be. You have to decide what your boundaries are. What are you going to do? What are you not going to do? And look, we think about this concept that selling is not a list or a sequence of events to be followed. Selling is a series of problems to be solved. You don't just follow an ordered list. It's not, I'm going to make the call and then I'm going to send the email and then I'm going to win the appointment and then ultimately I'm going to, make a killer presentation. Then ultimately I'm going to ask for next steps or ask to get a signed contract. Of course, a lot of those things have to happen, but it's not just something that you follow. It's a series of problems that you proactively solve. And when you solve those problems, over and over and over again, some predictability starts to arise. And the more predictable things are, the more, the more consistent you can be. But you have to be willing to lean in and pragmatically solve problems first. Use some guides, use some suggestions, learn from the people who have gone before you, but test those steps along the way. Pragmatism is a big part of the equation here. Now, look, just because your colleagues do it this way doesn't mean you have to do it this way. And just because it's never been done before doesn't mean it's not there for you to do. And it doesn't mean that might not still be the best way for you to do it. So this is an open concept here. I understand that it might sound a little bit scary, but you have to think about what needs to be done from a process standpoint. What are the boxes that need to be checked? You've heard me talk about this before. You identify who you can help. You get their attention. You communicate your value. You ask for next steps. That is the sales process. We'll talk more about process later on in this season. But those are the things that have to happen. You get to decide the best way for you to do them. That is the methods that I've talked about before. The process is the science of selling. The methods are the art of selling. You melding those two concepts together is how you redefine what selling means to you and how you get to do it. And only when you redefine it, when you create the system, that's how you start to develop mastery of that system. That's why sell like you is such a powerful concept. But it relies on you to be brave. It relies on you to stick your neck out a little bit. It relies on you to say, this might not work, but it also might. And when it does work, it leads to your very best results. You've heard me tell my story. You've heard several other people on this podcast tell the story. Or tell their stories, rather. I want you to go back to season 4, and I want you to listen to some of those episodes. I want you to listen to some of the wisdom that some friends of mine and colleagues of mine have just been willing to share. And if you can listen to all of those, you find a lot of common themes. At one point or another, they decided what selling was and what it wasn't for them. And that is a big part of alignment. So wrap it all up here as we tie a bow on this episode here. Alignment is critical for you doing your best work. That alignment between what you sell, who you sell it to, how you sell, and why. We're going to talk about why next week. But today, the how part is about you deciding where your go and no-go zones are. I'm assuming that they're all going to be legal, moral, and ethical. I'm also going to assume that you're willing to do some work to try to test those barriers and those boundaries, because you're learning from people who have gone before you and done that. So I'm really excited about where this is going, okay? And what I want you to do for your question, your provocative question for the episode today: where are your go, no-go zones? Spend those 20 minutes or the 17 minutes or so that you've got left here that I'm giving you back in our 30-minute calendar meeting, right? Spend those 17 minutes thinking about what selling means to you, what you're willing to do, but more importantly, what you're not willing to do. What are some of the superstitions that you're willing to break? I want you to think about this. It helps to journal on this. But when you redefine selling in a way that suits you, you are taking control of the process and you're setting yourself up for your ultimate success. Thanks for coming back. I know I took a couple of weeks off. I know it's easy to let other podcasts, get in your feed there. And, there are a lot of ways that you can listen to sales advice through a podcast. I really, really appreciate you spending a few minutes with me. And I hope that you'll subscribe. I hope that you'll tell your friends. I hope that you will listen and tune in every week, because I'm going to provoke you. I'm going to challenge you to rethink the way you sell. And I am going to help you understand selling in a way that it will help you sell like you, and you will get results, outcomes. You will solve problems that you never could solve before. You will cash commission checks that you couldn't solve or couldn't cash before, because you're investing in yourself, you're taking the time, and you're rethinking what selling means to you so you can sell better. Thanks for being here. I'll talk to you again really soon.
Rethink the Way You Sell is a Pod About It production. It's mixed and edited by Doug Branson, with music by Blue Dot Sessions and Doug Branson. This podcast is masterminded by Jeff Bajorek.